Everything on this counter came from one bag of flour. And that's not even counting the pizza dough and the frozen pancakes already sitting in my freezer. The bread, the tortillas, the English muffins, every drop of gravy a fall casserole needs, all of it, made right here in front of you, with the price of every single item on the screen. And there's a total at the end that I promise will change how you look at the baking aisle. Less than $7. But that's not actually why I filmed this today. I filmed this because of something the government quietly confirmed less than 2 weeks ago. As of summer 2026, the United States officially has the smallest wheat crop since 1970. That's a verified stat. Not a rumor, it's sitting right on page 1 of the USDA's July 2026 World Agricultural Supply and Demand Estimate. Under the wheat heading, 4th sentence in. Go look for yourself. Here's the part nobody's talking about, because the price on your shelf hasn't moved yet. There's always a lag between a report like this and the day it finally shows up on your bag of flour. And I can show you exactly how long that lag runs, because that gap is your window. That gap is open right now, and this video is what I'm doing with it. You might recognize these bags from last week, when over 300,000 of you watched me compare 8 flour brands. The #1 question in the comments was some version of "Okay, Cass, I'm tracking. But now what do I actually do with them?" So this is that video. And fair warning, I'm about to say something that might sound like it contradicts last week, but stick with me, it'll make sense. Same rules as always, reports on screen, my own photos from stores in my area, and nothing gets recommended until it's actually been cooked in this kitchen. First, some context, because this year's shortfall didn't happen in a vacuum. American wheat acreage has been shrinking for decades as farmers shift to corn and soybeans for better returns. That's the baseline. Then 2026 piled on. Persistent drought across the southern plains, unusually hot and dry conditions during key growing months, and higher than normal abandonment of winter wheat fields. Abandoned fields mean fewer acres even make it to harvest. So it's not just that fewer acres were planted, fewer of those acres survive the season at all. Second fact, the number I watch closest isn't how much wheat we grow, it's what's left over after everything else is accounted for. USDA now projects U.S. wheat ending stocks at 722 million bushels, about 22% below last year. That 22% is the cushion meant to absorb a bad harvest or a supply shock. When that cushion thins out, prices don't ask permission. They react. Case in point, early 2022, wheat prices spiked hard, but flour didn't double on shelves overnight. Not because anyone was doing you a favor, because stores were still selling inventory mills had bought weeks or months earlier at old prices. By the time shoppers noticed flour creeping up, the commodity market had already made its move. So here's what's actually happening. The flour on your shelf right now was bought by mills months ago, at old prices, because mills lock in contracts with brands, sometimes month to month, sometimes seasonal, rarely multi-year anymore. Stores burn through that old price inventory before the new reality ever reaches the shelf. The report is public, the lag is documented, and people who act during the lag pay old prices for a new reality. People who wait pay whatever fall decides. To be clear, I am not telling you to clear a shelf, and I'm not saying wheat is running out. I'm telling you a boring pantry staple is likely stepping up in price this fall, and buying 6 months of something you already use at today's prices isn't panic. My grandmother didn't call that prepping. She called it Tuesday. Now what to actually buy. This is why last week's video had to come first, because stocking the wrong flour is worse than not stocking at all. You already know the 2 brands that tied for first, and the one that took second on ingredients, ownership, and baking performance. Those are your buy list. But here's my twist. The thing I'm stocking most isn't flour at all, it's wheat berries. White flour keeps because it's been stripped of the parts that spoil. Whole wheat flour goes rancid in months because those parts are still in it. But sealed wheat berries can last 25 years unopened. So the move is, flour for now, berries for later. I don't buy more flour than my family goes through in 4 to 6 months, because the bags will ride out this price hike just fine. The berries are what opt you out of the whole cycle. Quick basics if you're new to this. Hard red winter wheat is your bread workhorse. Protein runs 11 to 12.5%, and it's also the variety hit hardest by this year's harvest. Hard white is a good second choice if your family fights you on whole wheat flavor. Soft white is for pastry and biscuits. Check the protein number on the nutrition panel, not the marketing on the front of the bag. For pasta, All-purpose works fine, just rest your dough and roll it thin. No need for 00 flour. Weigh your flour instead of scooping it, especially for anything delicate. Whole wheat lives in the fridge, lasts in the freezer. And if your flour ever smells like crayons, it's done. That's the germ oil going rancid, not your recipe. So here's the plan. A 5-pound bag of King Arthur flour, $6.19. Let's see what it turns into and you decide if that's spending or saving. Ground rules: first 5 pounds is 18 cups. So at $6.19, that's roughly 34 cents a cup. I'm pricing every recipe against that, plus what I'd pay at the store this week. Sandwich bread, 7 cups of flour, about $2.41. Add yeast, salt, oil, roughly 60 cents more. Total around $3 for 2 loaves, or $1.50 a loaf. Store-bought runs $3 to $6 a loaf, so that's a 65 to 75% savings. And there's no taste debate. Slice and freeze the loaves you won't eat that week straight from freezer to toaster. Flour tortillas, about 2 cups of flour, 69 cents, plus a little oil and salt, another 80 cents. That yields 8 to 10 tortillas by hand. An 8-pack at the store runs $3 to $4, so that's a 75 to 80% savings, 80 cents for 10 tortillas in about 12 minutes. 4 ingredients. No dough conditioners or seed oils. Stack with parchment and freeze. They thaw in 30 seconds on a hot skillet. Softer than anything from a bag. Pizza dough. 3 cups of flour for 2 crusts, about $1.30. Plus yeast and oil, around $1.25. I won't even compare that to delivery. A medium from a chain runs close to $20 near me. Compared to a decent take and bake at the grocery store, around $7 to $9, this still wins easily. Especially against frozen pizza prices that have gotten out of hand. The dough holds 2 to 3 days in the fridge or months in the freezer. And a cold ferment. Actual English muffins, 2 cups of flour, 69 cents, plus pantry odds and ends, maybe 85 cents total. That makes 7 to 8 muffins by hand. Store packs of 6 run $4 to $5, or 70 to 83 cents each. Homemade comes out around 11 cents a piece, an 85% savings. They cook on a dry skillet, low and slow, no oven required. Split them with a fork, never a knife. The fork tears open the nooks and crannies that a knife just flattens, and that's exactly where the butter needs to go. For speed, I keep a base flour mix on hand. I broke the whole thing down in my 1 mix 7 breads video. Once it's mixed, it becomes bread, tortillas, muffins, whatever I need that day, and it costs pennies compared to buying separate mixes. The recipe's a free download linked below, scalable from 1 person up to 6. Breakfast mixes: pancakes, waffles, breakfast muffins run $2 to $3 for a batch of about 6 generous servings. Frozen versions at the store run $10 to $14 a box for portions that don't actually fill anyone up. Batch on Sunday, freeze, toast all week, a fifth of the price. Biscuits and dumplings might be my favorite category. My mix costs around 70 cents for 8 full-size, genuinely flaky biscuits, not the small canned kind. Canned biscuits run $3 to $4 even in generic brands. And that barely covers 2 people. Cold butter is the whole trick. Cold butter gives you lift. Warm butter gives you sadness. Last one, and where I use flour most often. Roux, gravies, cream-based soups. Quick, made in the same pan as whatever else is cooking, and nothing store-bought comes close on price or taste. 3 tablespoons of flour runs about 6 cents. Add fat and cream and you're at 75 cents to $1. Sometimes just bacon grease. I'm already saving. Store versions cost triple that, and I'd rather not buy gravy packets that are just pre-portioned flour and spices you already own. Plus, you still have to add your own fat and milk. Every cream of soup in a casserole recipe is just flour, fat, and milk with a shelf-stable markup. Equal parts fat and flour. 2 minutes to cook out the raw taste. Then, whisk in milk. That ratio scales from 1 gravy boat to a full Thanksgiving spread. That's the iceberg of what one $6.19 bag of flour gets you, even less if you buy generic or in bulk. A 5 to 6 time return on a single pantry item. And the window to lock in today's price is still open.